This video underscores an important and often overlooked aspect of the relationship between alcohol consumption and health.
Alcohol disrupts the architecture, the quality of your sleep.
It suggests that low to moderate drinking, characterized by 1 to 2 drinks every few weeks, doesn't actually pose significant health threats for most people.
I think that people who drink a lot and are high performers, who then make an active decision for themselves to go sober, do an incredible, their work just flourishes.
It's crucial to note that alcohol's effects on health are not strictly linear, but they can be viewed more accurately through a lens of moderation and responsible consumption.
So when people have a drink or two, they feel less inhibited. They also, at least at the early stages of drinking, they tend to feel more confident. They tend to continue drinking, then they tend to lose their self-image. They forget who they are. They can even go blackout drunk. And the downstream chemicals are interesting. For a small, maybe 8% of the population, alcohol causes a huge dopamine increase. These are the people that from the first drink, they discover that they are an alcoholic or very prone to alcoholism.
The human body has evolved an array of mechanisms to detoxify and expel harmful substances, alcohol included. But when consumed in small amounts and not too frequently, these mechanisms are typically more than enough to handle the toxins without causing significant harm.
I think what we should do is image your brain and Bert's brain.
Okay.
And what you're going to see, but what you don't want to end up with is the Homer Simpson thing, right? With the little brain inside the big skull.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what alcohol does over time.
My God.
And then what happens is people end up on repeat of the same 5 or 10 stories and circuits. You ever been around somebody who's been a long time drinker?
Yeah.
They just kind of become the old story over and over again.
However, you gotta remember that these findings are generally applicable, and they're probably not true for everybody. Individual tolerance levels, genetic predispositions, and pre-existing health conditions can greatly alter how one's body responds to alcohol.
Then there's alcohol, and alcohol is more of a sedative. Alcohol's main effect is to reduce the amount of activity in the forebrain, which is involved in planning and inhibiting. It's involved in the no-goes, right? It's also involved in the sense of self and your self-image, who you think you are in the world. It's kind of interesting.
The negative health implications of chronic alcohol consumption cannot be overstated. Daily or weekend binge drinking, characterized by consuming large quantities of alcohol in short periods, can lead to severe damage, particularly in the gut-brain axis.
You know, it was probably the drugs and alcohol that I was exposed to. So alcohol made me feel kind of sedated, as it does, as a forebrain inhibitor, as we'd say in neuroscience. And the drugs at the time, people were mostly smoking weed and hash, taking LSD and mushrooms, and none of that really appealed. I mean, I do have a drug, and it's adrenaline. I love the clarity of mind and the energy that comes from adrenaline.
This term refers to the bidirectional communication system between the gut and the brain, which plays a fundamental role in maintaining our overall health. From regulating mood and cognitive function to managing stress responses and inflammation, the gut-brain axis is involved in a myriad of crucial processes.
This is the same prescriptive that they give alcoholics, heroin addicts, etc. But some of those drugs, of course, have actual withdrawal symptoms that can be problematic. You know, these days, I'm not a pot smoker. I've never liked drugs or alcohol. I kind of lucked out that way. But you know, and I'm not trying to demonize. I'm not passing judgment. But you know, cannabis, for instance, is pretty in prominent use, and a lot of people. The idea of 30 days without that is, I think they probably say they could do it, but it would be very challenging for them. And I'm not here to tell people what to do, right? Then there's about drugs, alcohol, or anything. But the idea is 30 days of no interaction with that thing, person, behavior, I mean, all sorts of things, so that you can enjoy other things. I like to say, you know, addiction is a progressive narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure. And if I may, enlightenment is a progressive expansion of the things that bring you pleasure.
Right.
All of that hinges on this dopamine system. So you have to be very judicious in your interactions with things that deliver pleasure, or else they will soon not deliver pleasure, and they will diminish your pleasure for everything else that you interact with. So the way to think about this is just to set up constraints.
When this delicate equilibrium is disrupted by chronic alcohol consumption, that can lead to a host of health issues. These include mood disorders, impaired cognitive function, digestive issues, and potentially, over the long term, contributing to neurodegenerative conditions development.
If a kid starts drinking early, like 14, 15, the probability of them becoming a severe alcoholic is extremely high, independent of their genetics and independent of anything else.
It's a potent reminder that alcohol has far-reaching and lasting effects. Alcohol's adverse effects extend beyond its immediate intoxicating effects to the very core of our health, the gut microbiota.
But the point is that you want to train on your own hormones, learn good sleep, good nutrition, good habits, and also live your life, right? You're not going to like not have a beer or two every once in a while at age 22 just because you might not recover as well. Like, okay, if you have a tendency towards alcoholism, be careful. But, you know, let's live your life is my stance. But once you have all those things in place, let's say you already have kids and people are feeling tired and more sluggish, then testosterone replacement therapy can make sense for some people. The problem is a lot of people think if a little is good, more is better.
And that's not
that's not good. And also it's what you do with that. You still have to run, eat well, preserve your cardiovascular health.
Yeah, it doesn't replace those things.
You still need blood work to make sure your prostate antigens aren't going crazy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I hear about young guys who are just like, they're slamming Viagra and testosterone. It's like this and that's not going to play out very well over time.
Right.
Like see what you can do naturally with hard work and dedication and balance.
Yeah.
And then over time you can explore things. But the peptides are interesting. They're kind of a, middle ground where you're not risking as much in terms of long-term fertility issues. They're not going to give you a ton of acne or something, or make someone look crazy like they could if they abuse steroids. And women are using them a lot more now because they're milder. They don't have these so-called androgenic effects. They're not going to deepen the voice. They're not going to create facial hair for women, that kind of thing. But they certainly work. They're banned in sports for a reason.
Now, I actually didn't set out to tell people that alcohol is bad or that cannabis can be good or bad. That's how I feel about it, depending on the person and the context. Or that nicotine can be good or bad, depending on how it's brought into the body and the context and the age of the person. I'm just trying to give people the knowledge so they can make decisions for themselves. I always say, do what you want, but know what you're doing. And I think it would be great if you would cut back. Look, I am not against drinking for most adults who aren't alcoholics, who aren't pregnant. But really, when you look at the data, it's a toxin to the brain and body. There are some health benefits in certain studies, but the idea that you're going to get resveratrol from wine, I mean, you'd have to drink so much wine to get that enough resveratrol. Basically, you can have 2 drinks a week and still be okay. Most people are drinking far more than that.
Yes.
And here's what I say, if you're going to drink more than that, then you should do a bunch of other things to support your health.
So when we are on the right path and we hit a milestone, dopamine is released and it tends to tighten our focus more for that activity. So the dopamine, this is why drugs of abuse and why alcoholism and some process addictions, which are behavioral addictions, are so dangerous, because a lot of those drugs of abuse are dopamine. So it becomes this cyclical loop where there's no other behavior that can evoke the same level of release.
Right.
In fact, I sort of define addiction as a progressive narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure. And I say that because it really is the way that the dopamine system works. Normally, the dopamine system is designed to be generic. It's designed to get me to do lots of things, social interactions, work, exercise, all those things.
Alcohol, short list, pro-cancer, neurodegenerative. It's a poison, right? It's a poison. It works to shift people's conscious states because it's a poison. Now, it's true there's some genetic variation depending on how much alcohol dehydrogenase, the enzyme that metabolizes alcohol, how much people make. Indeed, some people have a greater tolerance or can handle things. Certain cultures, they make so little of alcohol dehydrogenase, they have 1 drink or half a drink, it's like poison. They turn bright red and they feel sick, like they don't feel good. Other cultures, based on genetic variation, they can drink far more. I think that people who drink a lot and are high performers, who then make an active decision for themselves to go sober, do an incredible, their work just flourishes. Also, I will say this, I'm not in AA or NA, but the AA and NA community is amazing. The AA community, like I know some musicians who are regular in AA, and it's like a performance enhancing drug. the way they have this community, there's something about that filtering of experience through those steps that really does seem to work. And I know AA's got some issues too, right? And they've been accused of a number of different things, but I think they've done far more good than bad.